One of the worst decisions that's been made in footballing history, says one tweeter. Des Buckingham sacked. We're getting this panel's view on it, and we want yours as well. Welcome to Where Yellows Walk. Yes, we're saying thank you to Des. We're also asking who's next. We're looking at the bookies odds and who this team want. And also we're looking back at that Sheffield Wednesday game briefly as well. But, of course, the big news this week is Des is no more. Sam, we're going to have to come to you first because we flirted with this as a semi-joke from some tweets a couple of weeks ago. But now it's reality. Tell us about your reactions when you first heard it. If you're anything like me, I did that double take to check it wasn't a parody account.
I was shocked. I was given there was a lot of conflicting information coming out of the football club about what had actually happened. There were some reports I was certainly hearing from a source close to the head of communications that it was Des had walked, but other sources telling me that no, he'd been sacked. I had a feeling there might be something brewing. I've been told after the game on Saturday that the entire senior executive staff was at the game, and usually when they're not in the country very often to watch us, so that usually doesn't spell good news. It's a ridiculous decision. Grant Ferguson has since come out and kind of tried to justify it, but as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't make sense from a financial point of view from the football club. It doesn't make sense, I believe, from a sporting point of view. Yes, with 13 games, 1 win in that time, 6 of those have been draws. Were they expecting us to be, mid-table fighting for playoffs?
It's unfathomable from a neutral point of view, and I don't know if you've noticed how many neutrals will have commented underneath that post saying this is ridiculous. Chris, did you see this coming?
I didn't really see this coming at all. I saw when it was first broken by John Percy, and I thought, oh, this is a joke, and he's finally got something wrong in terms of some journalistic knowledge. And then 5 minutes later, the club tweets it out, and you just think, where has this come from? And in truth, if we were sort of looking back, well, if we were in February and we were still doing quite badly, we would have wished, got rid of Des earlier on, in truth. So there's kind of like a no-win situation for the board, but it still feels quite callous and wrong in terms of the way it's all been handled. Such a brief statement at the start of his sacking, and then the chairman having to do an extra announcement to try and sort of more defend their actions rather than justify them, and sort of hope that we all blindly kind of follow along a little bit.
Yeah, Connor, there's many fans that have said, look, I'd sooner gone down with Des and been in League One again for him to come back others than for this to happen. Are you one of those fans?
Yep. I texted into the local radio after the game saying that I'd rather, if we're going to go down, we want to go down with Des. He'd have deserved the opportunity to take us back up. But the issue, one of the main issues that I don't think a lot of people have really thought about is what manager that we bring in next. They have massive shoes to fill. They're already at a disadvantage because we already have held the previous manager, Des Buckingham, such high esteem. If we're bringing in a firefighter, say, I'm sure we'll get onto this, someone like a Mark Robbins or or Gary Rowett, they're not managers that go on to be in League One. So if they have a R on their record, there's no doubt that they'll maybe want to walk away. So this is a big statement, but I'd sooner be back in League Two with Des. That's how much that I adored him. He was much more than just being a manager of our club.
Yeah.
If I can add something quickly, Mark.
Yeah, please do.
If we look at kind of since this ownership have taken full control of the football club, this is going to be the 3rd season on the trot that we have not finished the season with the same manager we started it with. Obviously, there's different reasons for that. They took a long time, 2 months more than they should have done to sack Carl Robinson, which is why I think they've taken the decision so quickly, because they had such a backlash from taking so long to sack KR. Obviously, Manning left of his own accord last season. I would have thought they'd like to talk about sustainability and being a stable football club, and to then go, oh, okay, this lad who's been at the club for a year had only just celebrated a year back at his hometown football club. They spent a lot of money to get him in from Mumbai City, to get him out of a CFG contract. Backed him with players in the summer. Like Connor said, if we get a Gary Rowett, for example, and he wants to completely switch up system, the players are all built for a Des Buckingham system. They're all built for his way of playing. Like, there's going to be an astronomical amount of money being spent by the ownership purely based on the fact they have decided to sack the manager too early.
Thanks for that, both of you. Chris, do you think they've looked at this and thought, right, we're going to need to spend some money in January to stay up, but we don't trust Des to spend it?
Well, I mean, if you don't trust Des to spend it, you probably should have got rid of him sooner, because we've got a whole recruitment that's been set up around Des's system, and half the players that we've got on a list that we want to recruit, you're just going to have to pretty much throw them away or put them up to the side. And then in the most recent statement, Grant Ferguson said, we got money to spend, but we also don't have money to spend. And bringing players in January is one of the most difficult things to do in football, because it's overinflated. There are plenty of other teams who are in a relegation zone or fighting for a promotion or playoffs, who are all looking for a similar type of player, whether it's striker, midfielder, or defender. And so the competition is just that much greater. And usually the free agents, you might get a good one every now and again, but generally they're free agents for a reason. There are plenty of people who aren't playing football because they're not good enough at a certain level. So it just doesn't really add up. And then we've got to trust a new manager to instantly hit the ground running and say, I want this player, I want this kind of player. And hopefully that fits in with what we've already scouted, which I'm not sure about that.
I want to just ask you about the statement the club, or the initial statement that the club put out, Connor, because this lacked class. Rachel says, I still can't get my head around this pathetic and mean-spirited statement. This is not just any head coach. Des is an Oxford boy who spent 10 years working at the club before returning and delivering promotion to the Championship after 25 years. I'm ashamed. Were you ashamed, Connor?
No, I was disgusted by that statement. The fact that there was more of a statement from when Liam Manning walked out compared to Des Buckingham, I think really riled me. When that notification came through and I started reading it, not only was I shocked and aghast, being astounded very quickly turned me into visibly shaking in anger. That's how furious I was with it. Given that in the past 24 hours or so, I have thought through it and calmed down a wee bit, but that doesn't mean to say that it doesn't still hurt. One thing that I will say is that from what I can tell from our fan base, that for the past 6-7 months or year or so, that our relationship with the board has been quite neutral. There are I have a lot of questions about mainly Tim Williams and Grant Ferguson and some of the words that they say, but at the moment, I think Grant Ferguson put out a statement which should have been the original statement. Yeah. However, as Jack Ward said yesterday on his video reacting to this, there is not much more now that the board can do to come back from this and rebuild a relationship. As far as I'm concerned, the relationship between the supporters base and the boards, particularly Grant Ferguson and Tim Williams, is at rock bottom, and it's going to take an absolute miracle to bring it back to even to a point where we are satisfied or we can stand them. I highly doubt that they're listening. However, I'm sure that every fan will want to have some sort of forum, whether it be a supporters evening, and have some channels that we can ask some hard-hitting questions that they will have to answer and not shy away from. Because before the season started, Tim Williams said that there will be more communication. And if I'm not mistaken, he said something along the lines of there will be a forum around every 6 months. And if I'm not mistaken, the last forum was near a year ago. So yes,
it was the I think it was the February fans forum, and then obviously we had the one with Ed Waldron and Stevie Kinnerborough in October, I think. But you're right, these every now and then fans forums are not good enough. This isn't. They talked about wanting us fans to be a big part of this this football club. Well, the fact of the matter is, boys, if you want that to happen, if you want to stick by your words, then you need to hold regular fans forums. And it took them a long time to, as Tim Williams said, get the communication right. And then in the past kind of 2 weeks, with the debacle that was the Leeds ticket situation and now the sacking of Des Buckingham, they have completely chucked all the good work they did down the pan.
Sorry, just to add to that, I just look at this board and I just think they don't really understand the culture of what this club is all about.
Yeah.
They've brought in, they've dealt with sort of Carl Robinson at the start, who, for all his faults, he understood passionately about the culture of the club and the importance of community. And then they bring in one of their own, in the form of Liam Manning, who then stabs them in the back and that leaves them dumbfounded. And then they go and bring in someone who I've been passionate about bringing in since 2022 in the form of Des Buckingham, who understands the club, who understands players, who gets them on side, who's about the whole of the county, really. And then they go and stab him in the back without as much as a thank you, almost. And it just comes across as really poor. And there are many questions aimed at this board on and off the pitch. We've not really spoken about sort of the planning application around the stadium and how badly as a project that has gone. And we have known about this being probably one of the most urgent aspects for the past 10 years at least, that this needs to be done by 2026. And that's essentially fallen apart. And that's one of the things that we just really need to hold this board accountable for.
Sorry, Mark, can I just jump in there?
Yeah, please do.
Carry on. I'm not sure whether it's me fueling any conspiracy theories, but I do wonder in the back of my mind how much that this sacking has got to do with the application that's coming up in January. If we go back down into League One, wanting a 16,000 seat stadium, and we're only getting what we were averaging in League One, maybe lower end 6.5 up to 8,000. Don't think that's really going to sell. And building this giant structure in the middle of, at the bottom of Kidlington, and then thus it's going to be £100 million, and the finances that we can get from staying in the Championship for the next 3 or 4 seasons, that's going to be where I feel that most of the income's going to come from, because although our board owners, each of them, the main stakeholders, are billionaires, if you think they're going to stick their hands in for £100 million, or say there's, I don't know, for 20, £25 million each, then fortunately you're on cloud cuckoo land.
And the income and profit levels compared to what's allowable as an expenditure in League One is completely different to the Championship. You get so much more, both coming in and in terms of the regulations allow you so much more. So, and with the owners putting so much in, as much as I hate it, I kind of understand it's a way of really protecting a lot of their sort of capital investment in this club. So there is that kind of aspect as well, which we as fans will never truly understand and appreciate because we haven't got that kind of money. Would be nice.
Before we dare have a look at the odds on the next manager, let's just have a final word on Des, and I want to ask you for your favourite memory because it'll all be the same. But Sam, your final words on a man who, we wouldn't be talking here without him, would we?
Yeah. Look, Chris Gunner said it, and it's spot on. It's said by many of our fan base. The reality is that as Chris said, Des Buckingham isn't just any football manager, is he? He is Cowley born, Oxford boy. He's gone away and got some experience in obviously in international football with the New Zealand national team, with Mumbai City, with Melbourne City, and he came home and he came into a really difficult situation and kind of picked us back up. Obviously, we had that tough run from kind of December up until probably the Bolton game. Then he decided, screw it, I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to do the Oxford way. And he took us into the playoffs. We won it, and we're here today. And it's not just that, not just the fact that he's an Oxford boy, but we've seen in recent months all the stuff that I will give credit to the club, the work in the realm of promoting mental health. Will Vaulks, but Des Buckingham was a massive part of that, of the workshop that the club hosted at the ground. There's so much that Des will only, Des is the only other manager, unless we get another former Oxford player that will understand truly what this football club and what this community is about.
Well said. Connor, let's give you the final word on it.
Just thank you, Des. You'll be known not only for what you've done on the pitch, but as Sam said, more what you've done off it. Just the amount of, ever since the tragedy of what happened to dear Jack Badger, the amount of hoodies and T-shirts I've seen around Oxfordshire of boys get sad too is unbelievable. And the impression that he's left, like, kids will be crying because of him leaving. So I'm sure that at some point we will see him in the stands again, but I'm sure that it won't be in the near future. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Awful to move on to the next one, but obviously with any manager sacking, the next question has to be asked of you, which is who's next. If we look at the bookies odds at the moment, this is as of Monday the 16th of December. Gary Rowett, for me, surprisingly leads the way. Paddy McCarthy, Mark Robbins, Stephen Schumacher, John Terry is there in the fifth one, and Steve Cooper as well. I mean, Chris, of those or of other names that you've heard mentioned, who would you like to see in the dugout? It's not going to happen before Leeds, I don't think, but certainly for the New Year fixtures.
I think the idea is that we have someone in before Leeds, which is wishful thinking, I think, to a certain extent. Yeah. But yeah, I did see John Terry on that list and saw that he has some connections with our sort of Indonesian owners. But ideally, it will probably be one of the three in the form of Schumacher. I've mainly sort of gone for Schumacher in truth and lean towards that because I think he fits our mould the best.
Yeah.
I've seen Tony Mowbray being sort of linked with us, saying he wants to come back in to management, and I think that would be a good option. And Mark Robbins is, given what he's done at Coventry over the past 7 years, is frankly incredible in such a time where sackings are, as we've seen this weekend, are pretty common.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for that, Chris. What about you, Connor?
I should mention that before we start recording that John Terry has tumbled to 3-1, so make of that what you will.
Yes.
Wow.
I have been saying all day in the back that Mark Robbins, if it's not Mark Robbins, then all of this is for nothing. But as I said earlier on, the board are really stuck in a hard place. And honestly, I don't know, because we could get someone in who's a firefighter and keeps us up and then walks at the earliest opportunity should something bigger comes along or they get relegated. This has to be somebody that is willing to come in for the long term and actually for once have sustainability. So it's a complicated way of saying I don't know, because we had sustainability. We had the guy and we're just throwing it all away.
Yeah. Cheers, Connor. As difficult as it is, Sam, I mean, I can't bear the fallout that would be if you were calling you John Terry's Oxford United as you walk out to Ellen Road. I just the fan base wouldn't accept that. Sam?
I first say that said everything. I was sarcastic. I don't want any former players anywhere near this football club. Wayne Rooney, Lampard, Gerrard, Terry, you can all get, you know what? I don't want any of you anywhere near my football club. It's interesting, Mark, because we had a conversation a couple of weeks ago about, and you asked kind of, if the unforeseen were to happen, who would I want? And one of the names I mentioned was Mark Robbins. Obviously, it's actually quite ironic because if we end up appointing him, it's basically the exact same thing that happened with Coventry fans, isn't it? Because they were absolutely, they were disgusted at the fact that he was sacked by them, kept chanting his name. And I've got a feeling, unfortunately for Mark Robins, he'll probably have the same thing with our fans chanting for Des. That being said, I am kind of aligned with Chris a little bit on Stephen Schumacher. Obviously, he's not got as broad a managerial repertoire as someone like Mark Robins or someone like Gary Rowett. But he does interest me. My only concern is that from what I saw of his Stoke side, they didn't look very impressive. And those are with kind of mid-table championship players. And I'm a little bit concerned what would happen if he was given a band of kind of upper League One players at most.
Yeah, I mean, anyone will struggle with that Stoke side. In fairness to that point, Sam, it isn't the best. Please let us know in the comments below what who you would like, and we'll certainly watch this. We'll certainly watch this space. You've all mentioned it's Leeds next. I do fear for you here. Do you take a 2-0 loss now, Sam?
I think it would be incredibly Oxford United if we go and get a point out of this. Like, it would be the most Oxford United thing possible. I think back to when Manning left and Shorty's side managed to get a 3-2 win against Orient. Like, I take a 1-0 loss right now because that Leeds side, the way we've been playing in recent games makes you think, oh Christ, we're going to absolutely paste it. But like I said, it'd be incredibly Oxford if we go and get a point or 3 out of this game.
Okay. Quick word on Sheffield Wednesday. It's all said and done now, so we can't really change anything. Just a couple of points coming out from the game, Chris. Jake says, with that back four, we are going down. Moore and Brown have been found out absolutely awful. Big January acquired, and this was also before Des happened. Day way too slow. These slows not going to make much difference anyway. Is he right with the back four that was there against Wednesday?
I think we're certainly missing Nelson, and Brown is more shifted over to the left side of the defence, in truth. Defensively, Lee is a bit all over the place, but going forwards, he can be useful for us. Whilst Brown in possession has his weaknesses, but sometimes he could be marshalling the back four as well as Moore, which isn't what you'd expect, given Elliot Moore is meant to be our captain. I think in terms of us conceding 3 goals, the first one from a corner, which has seemed very unlike us this season, in the same way it seemed very unlikely that Sheffield Wednesday would score from a corner.
Yeah,
we just have to say, well, I guess it was coming to a certain extent, but how poor the goal we conceded really needs some questioning from our coaches at some point. But I don't think it's all hope is lost, but I just think we need to sort of regather the group as a defensive unit and then set our way forwards and just think about, okay, make sure we got a solid defence to start off with, and that way we pick up the odd point every now and again, and then think going forwards rather than just look forwards and then concede 3 goals or even more, Stan, as predictable at the moment.
All right. Thank you very much for that. Listen, I know you're all in mourning, so I really appreciate you coming on and talking to us and sharing all your thoughts, as difficult as it has been. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, of course, for watching. We'll be here next week to hopefully talk about Stephen Schumacher in the role or Mark Robins in the role. I don't want to be here next week if it's John Terry. That's been,
if it's Terry, I'm going to be calling for the board to get sacked.
Okay, God help us. Join us next.
Terry, I'm not coming on.
And just a final word from a neutral's point of view to Des. Absolutely brilliant. I've really enjoyed watching your football. I remember that Norwich game at the start of the season when everyone expected Norwich to rock up and plucky old Oxford sent them packing. I think you've given everyone memories that will lift a lifetime. So good luck to you, fella, if you are watching this, and if you are, get yourself on here at the end of the season and tell us what's really got on when your confidentiality agreements run out. Right, thank you, Chris. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Connor. We'll see you all in 7 days' time. Enjoy the Leeds game if you can.